Under the gray light at Martinsville, the weekend didn't arrive like a normal race weekend. It arrived with a feeling, one that's hard to measure, but easy to recognize if you've watched this sport long enough. Something about the atmosphere around NASCAR right now feels misaligned. Not because of one bad run or one unlucky break, but because the tension is starting to show in moments that are too sharp to ignore. And this weekend, that tension didn't show up once. It showed up twice. First in the hours before the green flag, and then again when the race itself began to confirm the warnings in real time. Two sequences, back to back, that landed with the same impact: frustration, surprise, and the uneasy sense that the situation is drifting beyond the boundaries of a routine slump. The first part of the story started before anyone took a competitive lap in the Cookout 400 weekend schedule. Qualifying set the tone immediately because the contrast across the field was impossible to miss. Denny Hamlin laid down a 19.275 second lap to take the pole, and several other drivers rolled off qualifying with visible pace. William Byron, Josh Berry, Ty Gibbs, and Shane Van Gisbergen among the names being talked about for their speed. While that was happening at the front, Kyle Busch's session went in the opposite direction. He ended up 34th. Then came the detail that made the warning feel even more specific. As the conversation moved toward what the race might require, Busch didn't talk about a long strategy window or a gradual improvement. He talked about needing help early, and not in a vague, hopeful way. He pointed to a narrow band in the run. He said he would need a caution somewhere between lap 30 and lap 40 because his tires would be used up by then. That's a striking statement for any driver to make before the race even starts, because it's an admission that the car isn't built to survive the kind of long, grinding rhythm Martinsville often demands. It also landed against another detail hanging over the season. There hadn't been a single Stage 1 caution all year. So when Busch said he needed one, he wasn't describing what was likely. He was describing what would be necessary just to keep the day from sliding away. That's when the Martinsville weekend stopped feeling isolated and started feeling like a snapshot of something larger. Because this isn't just about one poor starting spot or one problematic setup. It sits on top of a much bigger number that has been following Busch for months. He has not won since June 2023. For a two-time champion, and for a driver widely viewed as one of the most accomplished competitors of his generation, that drought is already jarring. But the way it was framed here is even more blunt. It's now a 100-race winless stretch. In NASCAR, streaks like that don't stay contained inside the garage. They become pressure. They become noise. They become questions about what's happening beneath the surface. Busch is driving the number 8 for Richard Childress Racing, and the search for speed has started to feel less like a short-term project and more like a test of whether the pairing can recover what it once had. Because there was a time, not long ago, when it looked like this could work cleanly. The description offered is that when Busch first joined RCR in the Gen 7 era, the group had real pace and even won races early. But then the trend line changed. The claim isn't that the fall-off began yesterday. It's that it started halfway through that first season and continued gradually, week after week, until what once looked competitive now looks like a team trying to hold on while the field moves forward. Kevin Harvick addressed that trajectory publicly on his show, noting what many fans have been thinking while watching the results stack up. The takeaway wasn't a dramatic declaration. It was concern, specifically concern about where this ends if the current path doesn't change. And the timing of that concern matters, because this is described as a contract year for Busch. Contract years magnify everything. They tighten every conversation. They change the way every tough weekend is interpreted. And they turn performance into more than points. It becomes leverage, stability, and the shape of the next chapter. The pressure is real either way, but the report here is clear. Right now, the performance isn't matching the pressure. Then the second part of the weekend arrived, the part that didn't just echo the pre-race warnings, but amplified them. The race didn't deliver the early reset Busch hinted he might need. There was no caution in the window he named. The run stayed green. The tires wore. The car did what he feared it would do. And by lap 46, he was already a lap down. Before that moment fully settled in, the emotion spilled onto the radio. The audio captured a driver who wasn't simply disappointed. He sounded furious, and the frustration came out in specific demands. More rear brake. Give me drive off. Let me drive the car. That last line in particular carries weight because it suggests the car's behavior was taking options away from him. It wasn't just slow, it was limiting what he could do with his own hands. And the results around him didn't offer any easy explanation that this was a one-car problem. The broader RCR picture looked bleak too. After stage 1, all 3 Richard Childress racing cars were running 26th or worse. That detail turns the story from one driver struggling into an organization missing something. When the entire stable is buried that deep, it points away from driver form and toward underlying speed and balance. Busch came into Martinsville already in a rough position in the standings, 23rd in points. The season to that point hadn't given him a foothold. He was still chasing his first top 10 finish of the year, with 0 top 10s on the record. On top of that, he'd already put together back-to-back finishes outside the top 20 before Martinsville even arrived. That's not the resume anyone expects to read next to his name. And it's not the kind of trend line that fixes itself without a real shift in performance. So when you connect the whole weekend, the 34th place qualifying effort, the description of a car that felt sideways and loose, the uncertainty about whether it could be repaired in time, the prediction that the tires would fall off before lap 40, the reality that the race stayed green, and the fact that he went a lap down by lap 46. It forms one continuous narrative. He didn't sound surprised. He sounded like he saw it coming. The race didn't contradict his concerns. It confirmed them, and then made them look even worse. And that returns the story to the contract year reality, because contract years don't wait for teams to eventually solve it. They compress timelines. They create decision points. They change the tone inside a shop. When you're racing for your future, every week becomes a referendum. The possibility raised here, carefully and conditionally, is that if this continues, it wouldn't be shocking to hear serious discussion about Busch moving on. Not because he's looking for an exit, but because in a sport built on performance, long stretches without results force change somewhere. Either the team finds speed, or the driver looks for a situation where the speed already exists. At the same time, this isn't a eulogy. The analysis also makes room for what Busch has shown before: resilience, the ability to recover from rough periods, and the capacity to win under difficult circumstances. The belief stated is that if anyone can turn it around, he can. But belief doesn't erase the evidence of the moment, and Martinsville is being treated here like a pivot point, a kind of weekend that can mark the beginning of a recovery or the start of a deeper unraveling. That's what makes the post-Martinsville feeling so heavy for a lot of fans. It's not just one ugly qualifying run or one painful radio clip. It's the sense of watching a crossroads appear while the season is still young enough to save, but old enough that the standings and the streaks are no longer small numbers. A 100-race winless stretch, a winless run dating to June 2023, a season with no top 10 so far, a points position sitting 23rd, a race where the car looked doomed before the start and proved it by lap 46. And if the weekend truly delivered 2 stories, that's what they were: the warning before the race and the confirmation during it. First, the car felt undrivable. Then the long run arrived with no timely caution, and the day deteriorated exactly the way it was predicted. A narrative that played out step by step, in public, on the timing board, and over the radio. Now the spotlight stays on the same central issue: whether Richard Childress Racing can give Busch a car that holds up over a run, carries speed without burning the tires away, and gives him the balance and traction to do what he's always done. Because until that happens, every weekend will keep producing the same kind of scenes: frustration, anger, and results that don't align with the driver's reputation. This is why the situation feels bigger than a single bad event. It's the mix of history and present reality, the widening distance between expectation and performance, and the knowledge that contract year pressure doesn't pause while a team searches in the dark. The next stretch of races will either become the start of the fix, or it will deepen the questions. And from the way Martinsville unfolded, the sport isn't just watching a driver have a rough day. It's watching a high-profile combination approach a moment where something has to change, one way or the other.